Welcome to the Get Fit Guy's quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield, and I'm the Get Fit Guy. And as the Get Fit Guy, I'm on a constant quest to figure out the sweet spot of exercise for you, especially when it comes to discovering the ultimate balance between health, performance, and longevity. Well, I've written many articles and recorded many episodes on this topic. For example, you can check out at quickanddirtytips.com in the show notes for this episode, episode number 231, articles like, what's the minimum amount of exercise you can do? Is exercise bad for your heart? Can you exercise too much? Can kids exercise too much? How much should kids exercise? And many more. Well, this week, the New York Times published an article that was entitled The Right Dose of Exercise for a Longer Life. The article discusses the results of two new studies that investigate how much exercise you need to actually get the longevity benefits of exercise. Well, before jumping into the results of these studies, it's important to note that rather than being controlled or randomized studies, the research relied primarily on people's memory recall of their exercise habits. So, similar to diet studies that rely upon memory recall of meals, this data can be prone to human error, but it can also give us important clues. So, in the first study, it was found that people who didn't exercise at all were at the highest risk of early death. No surprises there, right? Those who exercised a little, not meeting the current American Heart Association guidelines of 150 minutes per week, but at least doing something, lowered their risk of premature death by 20%. Those who met the current exercise guidelines of 150 minutes per week of moderate exercise enjoyed greater longevity benefits and 31% less risk of dying compared with those who never exercised. But the greatest amount of exercise benefits came for the people who tripled the recommended level of exercise and exercised moderately, mostly by walking, for 450 minutes per week. That's a little more than an hour per day. These people were 39% less likely to die prematurely than the people who never exercised. What's even more interesting, though, especially for you gym rats out there, is that after 450 minutes per week, the longevity benefits of exercise plateaued, but they never significantly declined. Even people engaging in 10 times or more the recommended exercise dose gained about the same reduction in mortality risk as people who simply met the 150 minute per week guidelines. Now, these people who exercised a bunch didn't get any healthier, but also, contrary to what many believe, they didn't increase the risk of dying young. So the other new study reported in the Times reached a similar conclusion, but this study focused more on exercise intensity and actually stands in stark contrast to other studies that have suggested frequent, strenuous exercise might contribute to early mortality. Well, in this study, it was found that meeting the exercise guidelines significantly reduced the risk of early death, even if that exercise was moderate in intensity, such as walking. Okay, so that, once again, wasn't surprising. But for the people who engaged in occasional, vigorous, and high-intensity exercise, there was actually a significant additional reduction in mortality. Those people who spent up to 30% of their weekly exercise time in vigorous, intense activity were 9% less likely to die prematurely than people who exercised for the same amount of time, but only moderately. People who spent more than 30% of their exercise time doing strenuous workouts actually gained an extra 13% reduction in mortality compared with people who never broke through the same intensity barrier. Even among the people in the study who were found to be completing the largest amounts of intense exercise, there was no increase in the risk of death. Well, at this point, you're probably wondering what qualifies as moderate and what qualifies as intense or vigorous. So, moderate intensity exercise is when you're working hard enough to raise your heart rate and break into a sweat. Think of it this way. You're working out at a moderate intensity if you're able to talk but unable to sing the words to a song during the activity. And vigorous intensity exercise is when you're breathing hard and fast. Your muscles are burning and your heart rate has increased pretty significantly. If you're working at this level, you won't be able to say more than a few words without pausing for breath. So, what's the ultimate takeaway message from these two new studies on exercise and longevity? Well, researcher Klaus Gabel, who led the second study, puts it like this. Try to reach at least 150 minutes of physical activity per week and have around 20 to 30 minutes of that be vigorous activity. Gabel also notes that a larger dose of exercise for those who are so inclined doesn't seem to be unsafe at all. So how much of your exercise regimen is in the moderate zone? How much is in the vigorous? Will this research lead you to change your approach to fitness? Well, we always have some pretty interesting conversations happening over at facebook.com/getfitguy. And also in the comments section for all of these articles that appear at quickanddirtytips.com in their written form. So check out facebook.com/getfitguy, or you can go to quickanddirtytips.com and do a search for episode number 231 of the Get Fit Guy Show. And until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit and live longer.